And before you start, I mean, take us a little bit through the history of ITD, man. It's an interesting
yeah, absolutely.
story.
I just want to make sure you see the right screen because actually I don't know what I'm sharing. So
I see a presentation with a quantum leap for your organization's transformation.
Cool. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me, and thanks everyone for being on this call. Very happy to share my 2 cents on how we are trying to convince the industry and are convincing companies within the industry to utilize training methods such as virtual reality and augmented reality in order to improve their organization. And so ITD was launched as a initiative with the UAE government, specifically the Sharjah government. For the people that don't know, that's one of the Emirates in the United Arab Emirates. And with the single reason of wanting to invest in technology and in the future of education, as in the government wanted to do that. And myself and my partner, we came to speak to a gentleman who runs a government institution, which is a research and technology and innovation park, which is owned by a university. And it's quite fascinating what they're doing, but their primary objective is to bring university research into practice. And I'm sure you can all imagine on this call how VR could play a role in that, whether that's helping to further develop prototypes and ideas and put them into a virtual prototype and be able to showcase something, and a lot more. So, I mean, I really have only 15 minutes. I'm just going to jump into the presentation because Dimitri asked me to make a few slides. Now, what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to share with you how I make a business case. And hopefully this would help you to create a bit of focus. And I was just looking at the poll questions because I really think the key thing when it comes to making a business case is focus. And out of the poll questions, I could see that 54% hit all of the above. And maybe at the end, we'll give you something that can help you focus on a single objective and work from there. And when I read the title of this session, Why the Future of Learning is Immersive, I remember that about a year ago, I gave a presentation which was called The Future of Learning is Going Primitive. And do you see my next slide? I don't hear you, Dimitri.
Sorry, I was muted, but I don't see it. So.
Oh, that's not great. Show screen.
Yes, there you go, man.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I was talking about technology on that session, and I'm just reflecting back to something that Dimitri said earlier during the session, which is learning by doing. And funny enough, when you think about VR, it's learning by doing. So we're giving people the opportunity to go back to how our brain is wired, and our brain is wired to learn by doing things. And just quickly, there was a Harvard Business Review report. You can Google it. Literally, if you search for this quote, organizations spend 359 billion globally on training in 2016. It's reaching 420 billion, by the way, roughly 25 million per company, looking at corporates. And the key question was it worth it? And the answer was no. And the reason that the answer was no, I see that I didn't copy everything, is that if you look, for instance, at our retention level, it's extremely limited. So what we want to do is we want to focus on effective training. So going back again to the poll question, I think most of us should want to improve the effectiveness of the training. If you really ask yourself, everything that we have discussed during this 1 hour and a bit, how much do you actually memorize? So VR really gives us the opportunity, and AR as well, to make things immersive, virtual, and that helps us to better memorize things. So moving on, happy to, by the way, cover this offline at a later stage. I've been asked to cover a few things. Where do you start and how do you build a business case? What to look for when selecting your first use case, and how to create top-level buy-in. It actually should be the other way around. Everything we do should start with creating top-level buy-in, and eventually I will give you a customer example. So where you start, in my view, is really with where you are. So often, whatever we're looking to resolve. So let's say we're looking to reduce cost, increase employee engagement. I think increased employee engagement is a good example. You need to ask yourself, so how engaged are employees today? What am I doing today to engage my employees? And in order to be able to answer that when it comes to training, you obviously need to be asking yourself, okay, what are the tools I'm providing for engageful experience? And based on these tools, you should be asking yourself, I mean, let's assume you're not too happy. How is your current state somewhat negatively impacting the outcome that you're looking for? For instance, we know that it's a quite well-known fact that organizations generally do have training, but it doesn't often get utilized. So that's a waste of investment. And then what we really like to do is we would like to talk to people and say, okay, so let's forget about your current state. Let's forget about everything that you're unhappy about. If we would be able to create a desired state, what would that look like? And the cool thing that I also like to mention, specifically when it comes to XR, VR, AR, etc., is that it's limited to your imagination. We can absolutely recreate anything, any scenario. And with companies like Vertalis, it's becoming easier and easier to do that at a more collaborative way, at a higher speed, and things that actually help your business case. And then one of the things that a lot of people forget when they are talking and looking at building a business case is actually forget that they need to showcase that there are certain outcomes they need to be looking for, and they need to obviously be positively impacting your business. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And eventually, what is required, we call those PBOs, what is required in order to achieve these positive business outcomes? We're going to talk about that. And eventually, how do we measure success? So these are 6 questions. If you're going to build a business case, these are 6 very good questions to ask yourself. And I'll share a link in a moment to a certain question methodology you can be kind of asking yourself. So looking at where we stand, what we're unhappy about, what we would like to achieve in a desired state, how that would help our business, what is required to achieve that, and how do we measure success? And so I was talking about focus earlier, and if we put classroom e-learning and VR together, and again, also here, I'm happy to share the research behind this. If we would ask people to do the same exercise based on classroom e-learning and VR, in all scenarios, we're seeing that people are more engaged in VR, are memorizing things better in VR, and obviously that makes total sense because it's not a 2D, it's not textual, it's not a single perspective. As the word says, it's immersive. So the proof that it works is there. The question is, how do you make it work for you? And what are the things that you're going to focus on to ensure that there's a certain use case you can look for? And there's 4 criteria that generally I talk to organizations about, and our team talks to organizations about when it comes to looking for objectives and things we would want to bring the organization, because introducing new and cool technology is fun, but it needs to make sense. So in all scenarios, we know we're able to reduce cost, reduce risk. So the 2 R's and the 2 I's, right? Reduce cost, reduce risk, increase productivity or efficiency, effectiveness, and increase revenue. I got a nice deck from Dimitri, but I already heard that your colleague used this exact sentence. So I'm not going to repeat it, but as we have heard earlier during the session today, that research has indicated that immersive learning programs are 30 to 70% more effective. as per my last slide as well. So again, the research is there that is showing us that that's proving essentially the point. And eventually, when we want to create top-level buy-in, I'm giving you a few more questions you can ask yourself. So let's say you're a oil and gas company, since we have seen an oil and gas example earlier, and I believe I have also an oil and gas example in a moment. The question is, why should you be doing anything? I know that we have a use case where certain training had to be given on an oil rig, and people had to be transported with a helicopter. Okay, well, why should you do anything? One, it's dangerous. Two, it's time consuming. Three, it's costly. You could come up with a whole list. And then why now if we've been doing it like this for the past 100 years? Well, that really comes down to what is available today to replace what we didn't have yesterday and making the use case for it. And then the solution, I know, can be confusing because there's a lot of companies out there that say that they provide a solution. And obviously, we're all here on the Vertalis call, and being a partner of Vertalis, I have seen what the technology can do and the speed of execution that Vertalis and their team come with. So this is something that you really want to dig deeper in and really pick the right solution. And to me, it comes down to achieving these points that I've mentioned earlier. You know, which solution helps me increase revenue, increase productivity, reduce risk, and reduce cost? Clearly not an opportunity that's very costly and it's very difficult to work with. So what I like about Vertalis is that it's very easy to use. Anyone can use Vertalis technology. And eventually, if we're going to present this back to management, we always go back to our story. How are we going to do it? The how is generally the desired state, right? The how better is generally the positive business outcomes, because we want to highlight how the business is winning. And the proof points are preferably external research that proves that this is how we've been able to validate that this has happened elsewhere and that it's successful. And eventually, I'm just going to give you one example. Just before I do that, again, to highlight what I've been saying before, employees in VR courses can be trained up to 4 times faster, which is something that you can see from this graph. So one of our customers locally is the Emirates Global Aluminium. It's if it's not the biggest aluminium company in the world, it's somewhere up there in the top 3. Very large organization, and they decided during COVID to suspend all classroom training. I'll just give you one single example. I've also heard a really good example earlier about saving $500,000 a day. And in the case with them, I don't want to go into numbers because we don't have approval for that, but I can tell you they had to sometimes shut down machines to be able to train people. So we went in and we basically recreated the type of training they would give new employees, which, by the way, is hazardous. So there you go, reducing risk. Shutting down systems is costly, right? So being able to do it in VR has no impact on the business, meaning we're reducing cost. And then eventually we were able to put them in a position where they could be more productive, because now people don't need to go to a facility and get trained there in a dangerous environment where they could make mistakes. They could actually do it in VR. So we went and recreated a number of scenarios that the organization can be trained in. And as complicated as aluminium melting, I mean, if that is possible, if you can train people in aluminium melting, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other things you can imagine you could be doing. So bottom line, what did we do for them? We helped them prevent hazards, reduce accidents, and mitigate risk. And obviously, this is quite confidential what their financials are here, but I'm sure you could come up with the fact that out of the 7,000 employees they have, 4,000 people have to be trained, what that would mean. And so I don't know how I'm doing time-wise.
You're doing fine, man. And yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Great.
I don't think you can see me, yeah. So, but I'm.
Okay, great.
But
So
as long as I'm
I
not,
had another
great example. Yeah. We have some questions as well, but I mean,
sure,
how
go
many
ahead.
slides
I
do
had
you
some
have?
other
Hmm?
Please.
No, sorry, go ahead. I mean, how many slides are remaining?
Well, I didn't know how long I was going to spend on talking through this, but
Yeah,
I've limited it here. I've
yeah,
more examples if people are interested in that, but happy
yes.
to take some questions as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Also looking at the time, Adnan. So I think first of all, I think sharing such a comprehensive but also tangible business model is very useful and important. The very interesting question we received is, I think, I mean, we can really address this, is that do you have any, let's say, clear examples, maybe Excel based, of this model, how it works in practice? And for
Absolutely.
that, yeah, that person, I mean, what I agreed also with Adnan is that we could do a deep dive session, because I mean, we only have 15 minutes today, you know, where we can come together, use the model, do additional explanation, because you are using this, yeah, own business model, ROI model with all your customers.
Yeah.
And you can take, Adnan is willing to take us through the details and share the inputs and how it typically works for industrial enterprises around the world. So,
So
Adnan,
the
if that
the answer
commitment
to the
still
question
stands.
is, yeah, no, absolutely. So the answer to, so first of all, absolutely happy to do that. But more importantly, I've stripped this model down back to like 2%.
Yeah,
There's a lot of comprehensive stuff behind this, but you know, with the limitations that we have in this call, I stripped it down. And my intention was to give people pointers that they could utilize today, tomorrow, thinking
yeah,
about their business and how to achieve positive business outcomes, as I said. But more than happy to share templates and all kinds of other stuff that could help you actually put this into practice.
fantastic. So my suggestion as an answer, let's plan a deep dive and spend half
Sure.
an hour to 45 minutes, if possible, an appropriate time slot, and to go into the details of the metrics you just shared. Man.
So what I'll do, I don't know when we're gonna have that session, and what I'll do, I'll share a few templates with you, and then you can share
Yeah,
it with whoever's interested.
that will be fantastic, terrific, because everyone will receive access to the link, and presentation deck will include the templates as well. Everything you can share, we'll share it with our audience. Fantastic.
Cool.
Done. Thanks a lot. I'll
Thank you as well.
talking to you soon, man. Appreciate it on behalf of everyone. Thanks a lot.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
So, thanks. So that